How's it going, everybody? So in this video, I'm going to basically be doing a brain dump, a borderline rant maybe, where I'm just basically talking out loud and sharing my thoughts about a subject or a concept I think we can probably call intellectual arrogance or something like that. But see, the thing is, before we even talk about this subject, okay, I'm also questioning whether it's intellectually arrogant to assume someone else is intellectually arrogant. Because what if I'm wrong, right? Maybe I'm wrong about a lot of the things that I talk about or think about. And so, with that presumption in mind, understanding like I'm very well conscious of the fact that I could be wrong on a lot of things. And I'd rather not be wrong on things. We're going to try to make some sense out of this, because these are some things that have been on my mind for a long time, probably for the last decade maybe, ever since I really started to actually care about the truth in life, the truth in different subjects, whether it's exercise science, nutrition science, philosophy, psychology, society, why the world works the way it does, how the world works, and is anything even real? What's the meaning of life? All of those things are serious intellectual pursuits. And when you start to go on these serious intellectual pursuits, you acquire a lot of knowledge, and then you start to see the world through the lens of that knowledge, and then you start to develop beliefs about certain things and certain ideas and certain topics. And so, of course, And so then you start to notice there's other opposing beliefs and whatnot, and you have to learn how to deal with them. So it's very interesting to me. You have multiple kind of tiers or tires, right? You have multiple kind of levels to this. On one level, you have people who are completely blind, like they're just completely unaware of anything whatsoever, and they're not really questioning anything at all. Like legitimately, they're just taking everything as they currently perceive it and assuming that their personality is the way it is, assuming that the way they see the world is the way the world actually is, assuming that their beliefs are true, right? And the worst part about it is that they believe wholeheartedly in their own concept of self, meaning they believe, if they believe that they are antisocial creatures, then that is their reality, and they legitimately don't question any other possibilities. They're like, yeah, I just don't like people. People are bad. People are human beings are all evil or something, and therefore I just don't talk to people. And it's like, well, we can begin to ask the question, because for me, I recognize, well, I want, what do I want in life is the way I operate. I want a healthy, happy kind of friend circle, right? And so I question beliefs that prevent me from achieving a healthy, happy friend circle. And so these people, they are like, oh, I just can't have a healthy friend circle. I've given up on it, or I've come to peace with it or something. And basically they are trying to delude themselves into believing that they're comfortable not having good friends. And this is just one example, but this applies to anything and everything in life. Sometimes people live their whole life that way, right? The same thing goes with money. They're like, oh, I am just poor. The system is fucked and all this other stuff. And it's like, maybe there is some truth to that, but the fact is, you see countless examples of people who decided, like they made a choice that the system may be messed up or whatever in certain ways, but regardless, they're going to push through and make the most of their financial situation no matter what. And, you see rags to riches and stuff. But typically the people who are like, no, like the system is fucked, it's against me, it's purposely making people like me poor, and that's why I am poor, and there's nothing I can do about it. They'll look at a rags to riches story and they'll interpret it as the freaking Illuminati is the reason why they got rich or whatever, right? And this can be on a spectrum. It doesn't have to be like, rags versus riches. It could literally be someone who grew up in a bad place in town, had a really bad upbringing, and then they were able to move to a middle class side of town. They have a decent income, and they have extra money to spend on the side. That's not rich by any means, but they're living a good life and they're in a good place financially. You see this all the time. But when you're in that kind of state of consciousness, if you want to call it that, like, this is not going to be a law of attraction video for those wondering. This is going to be as practical as need be. This is my observations in actual reality based on my family, my friends growing up, and, where I am now compared to where I used to be, and observing all of the different personality types and the different actions and behaviors and habits and thoughts that everyone else has had over this time. And I will mention I did score 149 on an IQ test in second grade, for what it's worth. And that's important because I think, that's been a factor that I've had to consider in me questioning, well, why are there so many people that choose to live mediocre lives and not rise to their fullest potential? And even further, start to develop, develop their beliefs and ideas and entertain the possibility that they may be wrong, trying to always find more effective methods and things, right? A lot of people, for some reason, choose to stay stuck in thoughts and beliefs and behaviors and habits that keep them suffering, or at the very least keep them from becoming substantially better. And we're talking magnitudes better. Okay? I've always been like, what is it that prevents people from, rising above that? And I've asked this question to many people before, and very often I get a very simple-minded response from a lot of people. Okay? That is not, to me, doesn't seem to paint the entire picture. It seems to maybe be a slight piece, right? So people say it's genetics, and they'll just be like, it's genetics, it's like a genetically low IQ. I've legitimately had a psychologist that I was working with say it's an IQ problem. And I hate that because people, and this is the thing, is I acknowledge that I have scored pretty high on IQ tests multiple times when I was younger. 149 is no joke. That's borderline genius. I don't know if I'd say it's genius, but I don't like that because I've noticed this is a part of that intellectual arrogance I'm talking about. And I never mentioned this in my videos until the last year or two when I started to, kind of get the clue that maybe it's relevant. But the thing is, there's a lot of people out there that believe that they're intellectually superior than the rest of the population, and they'll use that, they'll weaponize it. They'll be like, I am, like it's an IQ problem. And basically what they'll do is anybody who believes something different than them, they will be lazy, intellectually lazy. And they'll automatically blame, they'll say, oh, that person is just stupid. Or that person has a low IQ if they believe in the opposing political belief is very common. And I've heard this all my life with very close people in my life who I'm not going to name. They're like, yeah, anyone who believes that is stupid, or oh, they believe that because they are stupid. And I'm thinking to myself, if you're actually as intelligent as you think you are, you should be able to come up with a multitude of other possible reasons as to why someone else may believe in something that you disagree with, right? And I don't want to give any specific examples because, I don't want people to get the wrong idea. But let's just say like nutrition-wise, especially because this channel is generally geared towards nutrition science, right? There are people who are like vegan, for example. I was vegan for like a year, right? There are people that converted from like from paleo or something over to vegan and full-heartedly believe that paleo was bad for them and veganism was good for them. Side note, because of our confirmation bias, reticular activating system in our brain, our filter, we might, and also the fact that the YouTube algorithm selectively reinforces your echo chamber, we probably are not even aware of dozens and dozens of people who were like on a carnivore diet or a paleo diet or whatever, and maybe for a decade or something, just like with a lot of the vegans that turn carnivore, and they switch over to veganism and have all these like maybe legitimate arguments against paleo and carnivore. We may not be aware of that. It probably exists though. But if you try to YouTube search it after like a decade of only searching for carnivore diet videos, you might not find that in the algorithm thanks to the way that advertisements and recommendations and video content and things like that and Google searches are kind of geared. And that makes it really hard for us to expand our beliefs beyond what they already are. I don't know about you all, but I for a whole year when I first went carnivore, I was watching all these success stories and all this shit, and then debates with vegans and shit, which I still find interesting. But eventually I got really bored of just hearing the same shit over and over again. And it's like, but a lot of these, carnivore versus vegan shit, it's just a battle of ideologies. But anyway, there are many reasons, and I'm not saying veganism is good, okay? There's a lot of objective arguments that we can make probably on both sides, right? And everyone knows my diet. It's mostly meat. Anyway, but what I'm trying to get at is to say like, oh, they are stupid because they are, they believe veganism is healthy or something. And even if you're joking, there's a lot of people who make comments like, like whatever, like, oh, what do they call like a vegan with a B12 deficiency or something. I don't know. But it's like, to me, I think that this is a key here is I am fully aware that there is a high possibility that I might be missing something. Like I may not be fully correct. And so, but for me, maybe sometimes I get on my high horse with dogma and bias. I think sometimes it may be beneficial to be that way, especially if you're trying to help someone with a health problem. There's a difference between being an academic and a clinician. An academic is highly nuanced, leaves room for questions, like questioning their own interpretations, and is more so framing their beliefs in the context of like a discussion that's ever evolving. That's what an academic at least should be, right? They leave room for nuance, et cetera, right? But then there is a clinician. A clinician generally needs to find out as soon as possible what the best practices are to help their clients navigate, to give their clients or their patients, if you're a medical doctor, your main goal is to get your patients healthier and get them to whatever health goals they may have. They have diabetes. You better be very aware of the best possible evidence and the shit that actually works that gets them to reverse their diabetes, because your whole job is to help people get healthy, or presumably. I know, some people think doctors just want to prescribe drugs, whatever. But at the end of the day, that's an example, a good example, right? A clinician is someone who needs to give guidelines, and they need to sound certain of their guidelines. Because even if you sound certain and your guidelines are like perfect, and even if you know what you're talking about, and even if your protocol that you give your patient or client will absolutely get them to where that they want to be, even if you show them countless case studies of success, even then your patients or clients will have a very hard time committing to the program. Okay, so that's the first problem. The second problem is if you don't sound confident in your protocol, regardless of how factual you think it is or how much you believe in it, that's even less of a chance that your patients or clients are actually going to follow the program. And I've found a lot of so a clinician needs to sound enthusiastic, needs to sound like he believes in his program. And that's more important for adherence than how accurate the program is. So I've noticed clinicians out there who consider themselves evidence-based, especially people who are their whole job is practicing medicine or nutrition or training or whatever. They are generally very rigid in their beliefs, and they're very absolutist in the way that they deliver their information, and that serves a purpose. However, when we're talking about what's right or what's wrong, or maybe there's a little bit more to your current understanding of things that you maybe are not aware of, that's where the academic approach kind of goes into play. But anyway, I am a clinician. I've been a practitioner a lot longer than I have been a, I guess, self-proclaimed, academic, so to speak. But I think my intentions have always been, first and foremost, for my own self-knowledge and academic intentions. But obviously, if you listen to all my videos, I'm much more of a lecturer, an educator, an academic than I would be a practitioner per se. But the majority of my income came from actually training people and teaching people, how to obtain their health goals and shit like that, nutrition and yada yada. So, I was going somewhere with this though. So intellectual arrogance, so to speak. So basically, what I wanted to get at is the fact that, man, I was going way off the rails here. So it's like being intellectually honest is very important, first of all. If you're the type of person who is, not well educated on a subject, okay, first and foremost, let's say that you are trying to lose weight or something, right? And you've maybe watched some Dr. Berg videos. God bless your soul, because his information's horrible. Even though I do keto and shit like that, but you don't really. Your only like frame of reference is like Dr. Berg, right? Maybe Dr. Berg's information helped you lose a bunch of weight or something, right? And Dr. Berg preaches this idea that like carbs are like bad and the main cause of weight gain, and it's all about the insulin, and that's whatever. And so people restrict carbs, and even me, I've had some weird experiences where I like tripled my calories and my protein intake. I trained less, and I lost like 15 to 20 pounds of total body weight. I got leaner, objectively dropped body fat, and I also gained strength in all of my lifts over a period of time, eating like a high-fat keto diet or carnivore diet with no carbs, and like tripling my intake, which is very weird. So there's a lot of people who have had experiences like that. The problem is we have metabolic ward studies that show, that is most certainly a energy in versus energy out thing. But of course, there's a lot of other things that influence energy versus energy out. But anyway, the point is, like, let's say you have, it could be the keto person whose only frame of reference is Dr. Berg and their weight loss. Maybe they actually lost a shit ton of weight doing Dr. Berg's keto diet, but now they're going off and they're telling everyone insulin is the main problem, blah, blah, blah. You should, read Jason Fung's book or some of these other keto people. It explains how insulin is the main cause, Gary Taub's books. And look at me, I lost all this weight, right? And they're like, it's not the calories. I tried calorie counting half-heartedly, blah, blah, blah. But then you also have people like Dr. Sebi, okay? And Dr. Sebi is like this guy who thinks meat rotting in your intestine and, acidity and all this other crap is the main cause of weight gain and all this shit. And you would not believe the crazy things that come out of that camp. It's probably the worst. People thinking like all this stuff, like meat will prevent you from rising up to the ethereal realm. I've literally had people from that camp tell me. Literally people that I've known like locally that used to like, go to music shows with me. It was actually a female who used to be a fan of my band, actually. She was really cute. And she went crazy out of nowhere. Started doing psychedelics, and next thing you know, she's all like, freaking meat will rot your, intracellular toxins and like lowers your vibration down on the spiritual realm and all this crazy shit. And she freaked out at me when I just told her, hey, can you send me a scientific reference for that? Or something that makes sense. And she's like, screw you, like you're possessed by rotting meat devils. She's like blocked me all of a sudden over that. And it was really weird. And she had, anyway, so Anyway, I cannot even begin to explain that and how someone, because she fully believed in what she was saying. Clearly, I think. And it's like, how does someone, maybe that is an IQ problem, but I don't know. I have trouble kind of, buying into this idea that genetics are the main reason why some people choose to suffer and choose to abide by limiting beliefs. Like, I'm talking real obvious limiting beliefs. Like, oh, I am just a failure, and I am just this and that. And, like, they literally live that way for their entire life. Like, oh, people are just bad. I don't have any friends because society sucks. And, I only make $1,000 a month because I am, because the system sucks and shit like that, or whatever. I refuse to believe that is like mostly a genetic issue. I think that there is probably other influences that kind of play a role. I think, we know that like environment to a certain degree shapes your beliefs, right? You grow up in a Catholic household where you go to church every single Sunday and you're told that God is like the main purpose of life and heaven and this and that. It's going to shape your worldview pretty strongly. However, I've actually seen that just because, so it influences you, but it doesn't mean that you automatically believe everything you see in your environment. I've actually seen that, so most commonly, if you have two twins, right, one twin who grows up in the Catholic household is going to full-heartedly believe that, everything the Catholic Church says is correct and that God is the real reason, purpose, and all this. And then you have another twin, the other twin who goes through all the same thing, but for some reason they interpret it, they rebel against it. And they are questioning it for some reason. And that, I've seen this happen, and this has also been shown for things like calorie intake and stuff like that, that there seems to be other factors that are not explained by genetics themselves, okay? Where like the one who fully believes in the Catholicism, they grow up over time, still believing like heaven and God and the Ten Commandments and all that stuff is the end all be all. And basically anyone who believes in something else, like, I don't know what, like, is a good like whatever. They're like, oh, the freaking Kabbalah and law of attraction and whatever, Hermeticism is wrong. Or whatever, right? You're going to hell if, God is the only thing, whatever, okay? Just completely forget that the Mayans and all the people in South and Central America and all the Native Americans were not mentioned in the Bible and had no clue about that. But anyway. Then you have the other freaking twin who grows up and is like, turns into like a freaking LaVeyan Satanist. Okay, if you don't know what LaVeyanism is, it's Antoine LaVey, who is like a single person who kind of took the symbolism of Satanism and whatnot and kind of turned it into a philosophical worldview rather than like a religion per se. It's more so like using the devil as a metaphor to live a healthier life with a healthier philosophy, But of course, so you have like the LaVeyan Satanism that came out of the same exact gene pool, the same household and everything, and they have a completely different freaking worldview than the freaking twin who chose to believe everything they were told as a child, right? So that's a very interesting thing, right? Now, I don't know what exactly governs the child's ability to, kind of go a different direction with the influences. But, like, what we have to understand is in an environment, being influenced by something, it's not an absolute thing where it's like, okay, I'm influenced by my mom, right? My mom told me that selling on eBay is the best way to make money, right? I could be influenced by that by believing her and being like, oh yeah, like totally, my mom made $1 million business out of like a small eBay shop. Therefore, like that's the best way to make money. My mom said so, and look at her experience, right? I could be influenced that way. But influence can also be like, that's interesting. My mom made all this money doing that, and she thinks it's a great way to make money. However, I don't really like doing eBay stuff, and I've seen what my mom goes through, and I've through my mom's influence realized that's not for me, and that's not something that I want, right? I'll just freaking be a personal trainer and this and that, right? And this is kind of a true story, kind of. Anyway, so, influence can mean many different things, but it's important to understand that a lot of the people that you speak to, so first of all, they're operating on a certain level of consciousness that may be lower than you might perceive, okay? And the second thing is that their current state of consciousness was at least partly influenced by their upbringing. And it might also have been influenced by nutritional factors during childhood. Things like the fatty acid composition of their diet, right? It could be omega-3, or the amount of omega-3s in their diet. It could be the nutrient adequacy, right? It could be the amount of protein intake has been directly correlated with bone mineral density and height and other things like that as they get older. There's a wide variety of nutritional factors that one twin could be consuming growing up, and it could change the complete course of their mental development. It could literally change their complete life trajectory. Legit. What they ate during childhood could influence their brain's capacity and power to perceive the world in a different way. Whereas the other one twin might be like hamburger and eggs all the time for whatever reason, right? Mom's scared their child's gonna get heart disease, but they're like, all right, that's what you like, little Jimmy. Go ahead and eat it. Little Jim eats, fucking bacon and eggs or whatever, right? Because we think bacon and eggs is like a brain food, but I'm not saying that that's the case. But whatever. Just an example. Little Jimmy likes bacon and eggs, okay, and gets brain power from it. Ends up becoming a millionaire. And then little Mikey is a freaking corn puffs and skim milk person, okay? So let's say soy milk, but I don't want this to be a vegan debate, right? Freaking skim milk and like fucking cream puffs or whatever, corn puffs, all their childhood. And they legitimately eat no meat, no eggs, none of that, right? All right, fuck it. Little freaking Mikey eats nothing but freaking soy milk. Skim soy milk, low protein soy milk, and freaking corn puffs. Okay, that's the diet I'm constructing for little Mikey, and little Mikey might develop mental issues and depression and anxiety, all sorts of acne problems, irritable bowel syndrome, and end up maybe flipping burgers or something. Okay, at the same age as the twin Jimmy or whatever who ate the freaking bacon and eggs growing up is a millionaire. Okay, that's my bias, everyone. Okay, if your child eats bacon and eggs, okay, so little Jimmy freaking grows up being a millionaire because of the brain power. Okay, but look, that is a stupid example if you take it literally. But if you take it for what it is, a fucking example, okay, no matter what diet you believe, like legit, if you eat a diet that is not conducive to brain health and you're in your developmental years, like we know, okay, that the brain is developing to a certain point. Now, when the brain stops developing is up for debate, okay? It's not 25 like a lot of people think, okay? And I guarantee you that the how long your brain develops is completely dependent. Like brain development in general is dependent on the nutrients you eat, the drugs you take during childhood, and all sorts of factors, okay? Neuroplasticity doesn't stop, and as far as we know, we don't have a cutoff date, okay? It's actually been shown in experiments. So neuroplasticity, like the brain's ability to make physical changes, happens for a long time. But anyway, the ability for your brain to develop and change is dependent on certain nutritional factors, a lot of which we know about, things like amino acid availability from protein, fatty acid composition. We know certain vitamin deficiencies can cause subclinical retardation, okay? Which, I think a lot of people in society are suffering from. That's just my opinion. And I would also, side note, speculate that like certain nutrient deficiencies and other things, people's shitty diet could be to blame for a lot of people's learned helplessness or their decision to suffer, to make decisions and choices that make them suffer and they never rise above it. I have actually noticed a pretty huge correlation between people's diets, their shitty diets and their shitty kind of mental constructs, right? Shitty just meaning like, okay, so they eat a diet that makes them like a fragile diet, refined food diet, and all this other shit. It's very deficient in nutrients, and then their mindset is deficient. It's deficient in nuance. It's deficient in possibilities that there might be something beyond what they currently believe. It's deficient in enthusiasm and positive emotions. And so, anyway, I think drugs can also influence this. Like when I did score 149 on an IQ test in second grade, and I was tested earlier on too, like I think in first grade or something, or again in fourth grade, and the IQ test went to like 130 something or something weird like that. I don't remember. But at that time I was under medical intervention. So I was actually on a drug, Seroquel, from the time I think I was like 9 when I started it, all the way until I was like 21 when I took it off, when I got myself off of it myself. And that medication I was actually on for most of the time it was about 1,800 milligrams, but eventually there was a point where I was taking like 2,400 milligrams. I don't know how I survived, because that shit, there's a lot of really like negative effects, especially at those doses I was taking it. That's a lot. That's a horse tranquilizer dose, right? From the time of 9 years old all the way to 21. And the reason why I bring this up is because Seroquel, I've seen quite a bit of literature that suggests Seroquel can actually induce nerve growth factors and things like that can promote the development of certain parts of the brain. And so after like 2 years, for the 2 years that I came off Seroquel after the age of 21, I experienced extreme withdrawal symptoms that at the time I didn't know what was going on. And I had a lot of other health problems that I've talked about in my YouTube videos and things. Because Seroquel basically turns off a lot of neurotransmitter activity. It basically makes you useless. I've like legit for like 24 to 48 hours after dosing. It was really bad. Anyway, lots and lots of side effects for like 2 years. Couldn't sleep at all. Huge sleep deprivation. But anyway, around 2014, 2015, about 2 or 3 years after coming off that medication, I started to develop incredible insights, mostly as a byproduct of not just coming off that medication to where my brain actually worked again, but also obviously cleaning up my nutrition, doing tonic herbs, but studying philosophy and self-help and psychology, and doing a lot of meditation and reflective work, and having a shit ton of time on my hands. I was able to develop my brain and my understanding to where it is today, really. It was a pretty drawn out process. But what I'm trying to get at is it's possible that certain medications can either hinder brain development or increase brain development over time. So there's a lot of other factors too. I was always athletic and exercised, and there might have been a genetic component in that or something. I don't know, because my mom said that when I came out of the womb, doctors had to I was strangled myself with my own umbilical cord, and it was pretty bad. I was like lacked oxygen or something. I turned blue, they said. And my mom says I was like doing backflips in her fucking womb or something, which is what caused that. So I probably could have died. And maybe there was some kind of hormetic effect of the oxygen deprivation coming out of the womb. Who knows? Right? If you don't know what hormesis is, you should probably look it up. But anyway, so I don't know how to explain. I don't know. Yeah, so there's a lot of people who are basically stuck in learned helplessness, okay? So that's like the very first first level of the intellectual continuum, I guess we can call it, right? The intellectual hierarchy. I mean, I don't feel like you can call yourself an intelligent person if you're allowing yourself to stay stuck in disempowering belief systems. Because I feel like someone who's intelligent, they'll be able to identify, oh fuck, I am suffering right now, right? And then like develop a plan to rise above that suffering, right? I mean, it doesn't make any, and then So I think we'll maybe talk more about the intellectual hierarchy in another video. We'll talk about level 2 and level 3 or something. We'll just focus on level 1 in this one, because I've already really gone off on level 1, and so it's like 30 minutes in. So we'll just keep on with this. So level 1, yeah. So you'll hear people who's try to say depression. The smarter you are, the more prone to depression you're in, or whatever. And it's like, well, first of all, from hearing me talk, other smart people I think would be able to identify, well, he's probably pretty smart, but maybe not, right? And it's a trap, really, to focus on how smart you are. It's kind of a stupid, meaningless thing. Like, it doesn't really have a meaning, like smart. Anyway, for the sake of the conversation, it's relevant. But I was objectively measured my IQ when I was younger. So anyway, I think I have some weight in the game to talk about this. So people are like, yeah, and look at this study. There's a high correlation with depression the greater your IQ score. And it's like, whatever. I don't care about no correlation. What I care about is like the practical, actual application of intelligence. Because that's what matters. It doesn't matter how much you score in an IQ test, coming from someone who scored pretty fucking high and makes all these videos, intellectual gymnastics just for fun. I don't know why. It's just the way my natural inclination, for whatever reason you want to claim, my astrology, genetics, my environment growing up, who knows. But if someone was truly intelligent, if they're at least in tier 2 of intelligence, okay, I think that they would develop a plan to rise above their depression. So here's really what I found, okay? In general, especially in tier 1 of intelligence, okay, level 1 of intelligence, people who are they just believe reality for what it is. They don't question anything. They believe that like whatever the majority of their social circle tells them is true about the world is true. Their observations of reality are all that there are, whatever. And basically, they believe whatever things they already think about reality, right? And they have been for years and decades, and they don't seem to ever get better. And these people, you will tell them, hey, you know what? You have a lot more potential. You could probably triple your income. You could probably do it and be happier than you are working the job you currently are, busting your ass for a little bit of money. And you could do it if you just make this decision to go on this path. And the path is relatively risk-free. You could do it. The person, I hear shit like this all the time in different forms. They'll be like, no, I can't do that because, my mom said this and my mom that, or something weird like that. They always have some weird excuse for why they can't improve their situation. And sometimes they have valid excuses that kind of make sense. But, a lot of times it's more so like a pain versus pleasure type of thing, where the pain of changing outweighs the pleasure that they perceive they'll get. In reality, they'll always usually feel way better when they hit the other side, but they just can't perceive it now because they're on the other side of the pain. But most of the time, for some reason, there's some level of discomfort people just don't feel like going through. And that's usually the thing. And so this is important because you will see a lot of people making claims about reality, making claims about nutrition, making claims about exercise, making claims about martial arts, making claims about relationships especially. This is really bad and cringy, and I would love to just go ham on these people, but it's so cringy. And these people are the worst at like commenting stupid things that don't really get us anywhere. So I just don't do it because I don't want to go through the cringe. And also because the truth about relationship and female-male psychology is so far beyond the average human's ability to understand in our society. It's just the risk-reward ratio is pretty imbalanced, in my opinion. I will say that. I might be wrong, though, right? And I know a lot of people really love that shit, and I could probably make a pretty successful channel if I just let loose, but I don't know. I'm just really... I don't know. The pushback sound is pretty scary. Anyway, where is it going with that? But the main reason why people don't like they have these weird, like they'll tell you this shit in the comments, right? They'll be like, fucking meat will kill you and rot your damn intestine and your damn eyes will fall out. Or they'll say, or you know, salty, like really pathetic men will make comments like girls are evil and, you know, they just want to like lie to you and manipulate you and, you know, whatever. Right? They don't like nice guys. I'm too nice. Like, guys will say this shit. And this is very common. Like, yeah, I'm a nice guy. That's why. And girls just don't like nice guys. They're addicted to whatever. Okay? And they'll say this shit, right? And the problem is this can spread against other susceptible human beings. And just by virtue of hearing this, and then you might have had bad experiences with women. You might have had girls like that wronged you and all this shit, right? But you don't really, you lack the experiences necessary to really fully understand the situation. And maybe your mom and dad happened in a certain way, right? Your mom and dad's relationship kind of reinforces some limiting belief about girls or something. And maybe all your friends too. They all believe the same shit. And then you have these bozos on the internet who are all like, yeah, women are bad and, you know, you'll never be happy in a relationship. You should just be an incel or MGTOW or whatever it is and go your own way and just forget women and whatever, right? And now these people are like, yeah, that's right. That makes sense. Now they're like emotionally charged too. They're like, yeah, all this time I was trying so hard to get a girlfriend and it turns out it was them that have the problem and not me, right? And this is a huge mind virus where you start to blame everybody else. You think everyone else is stupid, everybody else is wrong, and the only thing that's right is your experiences and your emotions and what you believe. And this is bad, okay? This is a big mind virus where you're like, yeah, you get emotionally fueled, and then every time someone tries to wake you up a little bit, like, hey, actually, it's possible that you may be missing a huge chunk of the picture here, you know, and you're like, no, like you have this freaking knee-jerk emotional reaction. It's very likely that emotional reaction is because maybe there's something you should analyze. There's a blind spot that you're not recognizing. So, anyway, that is a very great explanation of the worst of the worst. Like there's worse than that. There's like, I don't want to talk about even what's below this, but these are people that have all of the ability in the world to rise above it, but they're just held in that weird like level 1 consciousness. And they have experiences and thought patterns and beliefs and influences now that reinforce them being stuck there. Okay? And this is just one example, right? And then they'll share comments and freak out in the comments. This is why, like, I don't even make as debunking videos like I used to. Really have conversations with people. Like I've tried really hard to just give up because I recognize that they legit, metaphorically speaking, but legitimately seem to be living a completely different reality, and they're stuck there. And it's like when they talk to me, it's like, clearly not what the truth, right? At least from where I'm standing, but in their reality, they're literally creating all of that craziness, right? And nothing I can do or say or show them, you know, can help, because if I'm like, hey, like actually look at this relationship, you know, I had this relationship with this girl for 4 years and it was amazing and blah, 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 and she was amazing. She's a great example of great girls, and I've had multiple relationships where girls show that they're really caring and they're awesome and they're not evil, right? But these people are like, no, that doesn't exist, you're lying, or you were paid by the girl industry, people will say, or some shit, right? They have all these weird fucking beliefs that hold them there. Meanwhile, they're the ones suffering, but they don't recognize it because they're in some weird pattern delusion. They're like, no, I'm not a pessimist, or I'm not suffering. I'm not suffering. I'm just telling it like it is. And I'd rather suffer and be real and factual than suffer and live a lie. And it's like, well, you actually live in a lie, but you just can't see it. So of course this happens in like nutrition science too, right? This is why these days, if you listen to my videos, I don't really just go off about vegans. Maybe sometimes I might like make offhand comments, but I I wouldn't say I'm like carnivorously dogmatic either. Like, so I don't know. I think I've grown with a huge like awareness of nuance and whatnot. But anyway, this is a huge problem. Okay, and this can be basic shit too, just like what you believe about yourself. Like, oh, I have depression. This is another one. Like I already mentioned about the crazy amounts of Seroquel I took from a childhood. Okay, someone who knows what Seroquel is and the fact that doctors don't just diagnose you that shit for nothing. I've overcome crazy supposed mental illness. I don't actually think, I think it was misdiagnosed probably, but whatever. You don't just, I overcame way worse, objectively speaking, than a lot of these people that claim to have like, genetic depression or genetic anxiety. It's like there's a chance that there is a component involved, genetic component, but most people seem to just, their main problem is not that they are genetically depressed, okay? And I could easily explain why the majority of the arguments for depression being genetic is wrong. I have before, but the thing is when you start to explain to people why their self-diagnosis of depression, or their diagnosis, legit diagnosis of depression and anxiety, might actually not be what's holding them back. When you start to explain, hey, actually, you might be able to overcome this shit. People get pissy with me. I can't begin to explain how many people I've been friends with, and I'm not even antagonizing them or anything. I'm just like civilly explaining, actually, the evidence on this doesn't suggest that that's correct. The evidence suggests that you might be able to overcome your depression or your anxiety or your ADHD or whatever if you just kind of like do some of these factors and this and that. It doesn't matter what facts I give them or how I approach it, how long or short the damn message is. Without fail, 9 times out of 10, if they are in learned helplessness and you're providing them a way out, they'll freak out at you and they'll fucking they'll like block me out of all things, as if deleting me wasn't enough. You could delete me, okay? I'll be like, okay, like I don't do this shit like for any other reason than to try to help you, right? Sending you a dissertation-worthy paragraph explaining why you can do better with yourself, like why you can probably overcome your mental issues, right? Because I have. They'll fucking block me. Like, come on, you could delete me. I'm not gonna, but they'll block me, all right? Probably because they're angry at me. Well, I don't know why they'd be angry at me. I'm just trying to help. But there's some kind of weird anger that exists, some kind of denial. That's denial, completely blocking me because I'm giving you a way out, right? And of course, they'll justify it by saying, oh no, like it's a scientific fact and this and that, and you're wrong based on science. My doctor with the medical degree said that I am doomed for life and have to take this medication and suffer and this and that. And it's like, well, okay. Did you have to like block me? Did you have to cuss me out? Right? And isn't there a choice involved in that too? But so I don't know. For me, I see a lot of, I don't know if I would think that this is a choice in navigating your belief structure, right? I don't even know if I'd call any of this intelligence, but I would think someone with a high degree of intelligence would be highly skeptical of a lot of the issues that they have, especially highly skeptical of a lot of the thoughts and beliefs that they might have that seem to be holding them back from like becoming better. Right? Because what's the point of intelligence? Is it just to like analyze everything? There's got to be some kind of intention there. A lot of people, their belief structure is mostly just to hold them in a certain place that for whatever reason they choose to be. So I'm going to continue this in another video, I guess, maybe. But even amongst like intelligent people, right? Like, so you might have a really intelligent person that is highly skeptical and open-minded about a lot of different things. And maybe they have a really awesome life, and they're not trying to like avoid. They're not coming from learned helplessness per se, right? But it could be something else, like a debate about nutrition or something, right? or like it'd be a debate about nutrition, right? Let's just say we have very clear evidence, right, that this person chooses for whatever reason to eat 80 grams of protein a day, to eat very low protein intake, okay? Like super low. All right? And their performance is probably not as good as it could be. Maybe they could have better performance in their sport if they increase their protein intake. But they just for whatever reason want to eat a certain amount of protein, right? Now the problem is they're not consciously honest. They're not intellectually honest with themselves. They don't just say, "Hey, yeah, I just don't want to eat that much protein. It's just not something I want to do. It's just tedious, costs a lot of money, whatever." Right? That would be the intellectually honest thing to do. But no, they'll actually be like, "No, eating more protein is bad for the kidneys. It'll kill my kidneys." Right? Also, eating more protein isn't going to make me stronger or more muscular or better at my sport. It's not going to improve my health or whatever. And I might be able to explain all the mechanisms, cite studies, and also show them like real world examples, meta-analysis, randomized controlled trials about kidney health and also of increasing protein intake, decrease health outcomes as you get older, decrease risk of diseases when you get older and whatever. And I could show them extreme evidence, factual evidence that, hey, at least increasing your protein a little bit is probably going to make you a better athlete or whatever. On every single faucet that we might discuss, eating more protein might help you, right? And they'll live a happy life and all this shit already, right? But they're just like, no, like the all that is bullshit. Have you heard of this guru, Dr. Vegan guru Caldwell Esselstyn or whatever? You don't need that much protein for sports performance or whatever. You're full of shit and whatever. They will be absolutists in their thing, like, no, in fact, that much protein might hinder your performance, and they have like no evidence to back it up. They don't even bother to look at the evidence I talk about. They don't bother to listen to me explain. They don't ask me questions. I'll ask them a bunch of questions, and they stumble over their words. It's like they don't, objectively speaking, right? Like if they were being intellectually honest, they probably are not interested in truth. It's like I might be wrong, but I'm giving you the opportunity to kind of give me some counterpoints. But they don't even care if they're not seeking that, right? And I'll ask them, well, how long have you been studying this, right? I have, like they'll reference a guru, like, have you heard of this vegan doctor, Colin Campbell or whatever, the China study, right? Like, yeah, I have the book, bro. Have you read the book? Like what do you think about the book, right? And they're like, oh no, I don't have his books. I just watched one of his lectures, blah blah blah. And it's like I know their guru better than they do. This happens all the time when I talk to people, but they don't give a fuck. They don't even give a fuck enough to read the guru that they're referencing, right? That they got their whole belief system from. And I see this time and time again. Where people, they don't even know their own argument enough. Like, I know their own argument better, but they're not arguing with you to try to figure out truth. I don't even know. They're just trying to be like, this is the way the world is, period, right? So intellectually, if you're being intellectually honest, you just be like, well, I like the idea of eating less protein. For me, from the things that I've seen, I think it might be better for health, but I might be wrong. I've seen some athletes that don't eat that much protein and seem to be fine, therefore I should be good to go. And I'm like, well, that, is fair enough, right? But no, they want to go on the other end. They want to be like, no, protein will break your kidneys. Meanwhile, I'm citing evidence that that's false, and they don't have any evidence at all, right? You don't need that much protein for athletic performance. It won't improve you at all. It's like, okay, where's your evidence or whatever? So, and you'll see this shit in the comments, and this could be about fucking anything. People will make absolute claims, or they'll post shit on their like social media, like, oh, I'm just gonna give an example, like, red meat is bad. Do you agree or disagree, right? And I might reply to that and be like, oh, what makes you think, what do you think? Why do you think red meat is bad or whatever, right? Start a discussion, try to understand where they're coming from. And they might be like, fuck you, I don't want to have this debate, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, if you didn't want to have this debate, why did you post it on your social media? If you didn't want to have this debate, why did you make an absolutist comment on my YouTube channel, right? People make comments like, oh, like if you eat roots, they will kill you. Roots don't want to be eaten, blah, 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 right? And then I'll be like, okay, well, where's your reference for that? What about all of these populations of people whose main staple in their diet is roots and they live past the age of 100? What do you think about that? What is your explanation for that? And I'm genuinely curious in your opinion on that. This is not me trying to antagonize you, right? I'm just interested, right? It's like they don't have any like explanation. A lot of times they won't even discuss it further. Or they'll just get angry at you. Like, I don't want to have this argument. It's like, well, I just want to know where you're coming from. Like, why the fuck did you comment if you didn't want to talk about it, right? Why the fuck did you post it on your social media if you don't want to have a discussion about it, right? Especially if you're a doctor or you're a practitioner of some kind or whatever, right? It doesn't make any sense. You want, like this is a topic you're heavily invested in. You make a post publicly about it, and then you like resist any kind of attempts at like a discussion, right? Even if they're a heated discussion, it's like, what's the point of stating your opinion to the public? I don't know. So yeah, hopefully this shit made sense. There's a lot more I want to kind of get into this. I'm sipping on some mate right now. Talk to y'all next time.